Morning, everybody. It's Groundhog's Day. Happy Groundhog's Day. It's also the day of the Super Bowl. And if you're new to this channel, this video isn't going to make any sense. uh, Probably, I should really start making playlists and kind of put those up for people to go through on my channel. But sans that happening today, if you're coming across this before the Super Bowl, I recommend you go watch my previous few videos that I've been doing showing how the steganography that I focus on with the letter V, that's V as in Victor, connects with a lot of the world events that we're seeing today. Not just today, as in, Groundhog's Day, but in today's day. So it's a better way to put it, I think. Just a sec. I need to sip my coffee here. Today's video is not going to be really any different from a lot of the momentum that we've been carrying in from a lot of the topics. But some things have happened in the world since we got on here last. The coronavirus, for one. And I'm going to go into that a little bit today and show what I see with the V steganography too. But I'm going to expand actually on the last videos where we were tying the rituals that the elite put together with the Super Bowls. And I was showing how Super Bowl 50, 52, 54 were all connected. And I do recommend you guys go back and watch that. I showed how the ritual of the Titans and the Packers getting killed off in the playoffs on the same day was all part of this as well. The numerology all matches. If my computer can chug along here. This happens when I have all these freaking tabs up. Unfortunately, I only have so much RAM on the computer. I gotta get like 128 megs of RAM or something. But we also were talking about how there are some certain players, not only with the Glass-Steagall Act of 1934 and how it factors into the Eagles and their win that year, but also Seattle. Seattle is a huge component of what's going on with Donald Trump, Boeing. We're going to find out Microsoft is now involved with this numerology stuff. And as you recall, the numerology numbers that we were looking at predominantly because of the 50, 52, 54, those are all in play, of course. But 119, because it's the reverse of 9/11, and we saw at 9/11 the repo markets started coming apart in the economy last year. There was Boeing that crashed 119 points, or Boeing that helped the Dow Jones crash 119 points earlier in the month that we were showing. And tying to that, we've also got this ritual related to the Super Bowl, which is, of course, today on Groundhog's Day, and involves the two teams that Joe Montana played for. And I also did a little bit of a decode on what Warren Moon had to do with it, local sports hero of Seattle, and what the return of beast mode and the number 24, Marshawn Lynch, and all this stuff is having to do with the coincident nature of events. And as you guys also might recall, the other big thing in the news, if you can really call it a big thing, is that Kobe Bryant died. And it was interesting because of Zach Hubbard, really. Zach Hubbard was forecasting that days in advance of that happening, LeBron James is destined to pass his scoring record in Philadelphia on the day that which is Kobe Bryant's hometown, with a day of certain numerology and such. And so it was looking kind of fishy. I was even telling my girlfriend, I was saying, are we going to have like a Tupac Shakur incident? And sure enough, that's kind of what happened. The very day after LeBron James passed the scoring record, there he was. Kobe Bryant was in the news. He was dead, so as they say. But I'm not so convinced. Will I ever happen across an island with a bunch of dead celebrities on it, and kind of living their lives? I can't even confirm that a lot of these guys existed in the first place because I've never met them, right? I can tell you, Warren Moon is a guy that, because of his name, is suspect because of all of the numerology that pervades around the topic of the moon. And we're going to go into a little bit today why all this numerology friggin' matters. Hopefully it makes a little bit of sense to some folks, because what are they trying to hide behind it is not necessarily what they're trying to hide, it's what they're trying to ritualize. And, you know, they have to put the occult stuff out there in plain sight in order for you to see it. But as we go back, let's refresh ourselves. I got some terms back up with the Gematrinator calculator. We were going back into the moon landing, Warren Moon. I've even got some new ones in here. The petrodollar, counterfeit, lost in time. 5 and 5, of course. V is Roman numeral 5 is the main thing that we cover on this channel, and so everything 5 or V ends up connecting in some way to my work. And so 5 and 5 is a huge indicator of V steganography. 25 is a big one because 5 times 5, and we're gonna also, we're gonna see how some of this stuff starts connecting. But we've got these terms. Joe Montana is significant because it's Super Bowl 54 this year. 36 is 666 is triangular number, as we see right here. 36, 666 is the triangular number. And we're going to come back to this chart here in a second too. But 108 also lines up with geometry. 36 lines up with geometry, and of course Euclid, the Greek philosopher, Greek mathematician, who has also 27 thrown in there. 108 also represented. 27's an interesting number. I'm not going to go too much into today, but I do want to put people over in touch with Zach Hubbard's channel again, because he had Larry Johnson, number 27 of the Kansas City Chiefs, former Kansas City Chiefs running back, on his show. And Larry Johnson's been doing a weird tour of debunking the occult in sports lately, not all the way to do with gematria or numerology, but also with a lot of the symbolism that he's talked about being even part of his contract to throw up certain signs and symbols when he scores a touchdown and all this stuff. And so what we're finding out slowly, albeit, is we're getting little glimpses into what the world of sports and what the world of the occult and the news is really all about. And, am I claiming anything about number 27 and Larry Johnson? No, but I do think it's interesting that 72, 27 are used in conjunction with things like money and time. And we're not doing a 72, 27 decode here, let me just say. I did, but the Seattle World's Fair got pulled up. I decided to pull up, Euclid was the one I was looking for. I decided to pull up the Seattle World's Fair in here just kind of as a wild hair thing. Just because of how connected Seattle is to all these news events lately. So, of course, Seattle, as it relates to the football stuff, Seahawks, they got knocked off. I've contended in previous videos that they're connected to the Space Force, and because of the aerospace industry that exists there, because of the Boeing connection and the crashing of the traditional old, jetliner style planes, and maybe making way for a new paradigm. And also, that's kind of what we're finding out with Tesla too, as it turns out. Tesla's stock is skyrocketing. Oh, geez, I hate it when this happens. I gotta go get that photo again, as you're seeing some of these. So the Tesla logo, of course, they're crashing and burning too. And what do we see most often? But their cars spontaneously combusting. And I missed this before the last video, but there's a connection here, I think, with the T of Tesla, and of course the T of the Titans crashing out of the playoffs last week, 2 weeks ago. The Packers, of course, losing to Jimmy G. Also, there's the G connection for their matching in the gematria. I put that in here again. A T and G, they match perfectly in terms of their terms. So there's something larger going on with some of with the corporations of the world. Tesla's involved, Boeing's involved, and I think what's being hidden from us is largely this secret space program now being brought public. And the main thing that happened with the V steganography, of course, I think related to the Space Force, was their logo. They've got the lambda front center here. If you go back to the divine ratios that I was showing with the 72 degrees, in the triangle, of course, making up the base of each one of the prongs of the pentagram, and 36 degrees being its spread at the point. So this stuff is 100% keyed into this logo. It matches up with some of the Star Trek Starfleet stuff that's out there, but also the Saturn symbology is all over this thing too. There's the Saturn cube. So one thing we didn't cover with this, by the way, is that Kabbalah, what all this numerology practice factors into, both kind of the Catholicism and Hebrew variety, the Kabbalah means the cube, and this is pervaded over the top of even Islam now, as we were kind of showing last time. What else is interesting about the moon and the cube is the New Jerusalem riddle in Revelation of the Bible, where it itself is the dimension of a cube. And so we're again, I'm gonna factor all this stuff in, but let's start with Punxsutawney Phil. It's Groundhog's Day. It's the 2nd of the month. This stupid charade plays itself out every friggin' year. And I think it's just the dumbest thing that maybe not as dumb as sports even, I don't know, but that we have to distract ourselves with. There's a 134th celebration of Groundhog's Day, and Gobbler's Knob, Pennsylvania is where this thing was held. And of course, Punxsutawney Phil didn't see his shadow, so spring is going to come early this year. It's this stupid ritual that we play out. Interesting thing that you find out about this stuff, guys, is look at the gematria of Gobbler's Knob, Kansas City, and San Francisco. Is it a coincidence that 122, 122, 122, 202, 202, 50, 50, 67, 67, 76, the reverse of 67? Is it a coincidence that these terms all match up with one another on the same day, on this very big holiday, this ritual day? I'll leave that up to you to decide, I guess. I'm just kind of pointing out that there's some weird stuff going on in the world right now around the Space Force and as the central theme. By the way, here's the article I'll link for the latest Tesla spontaneously combusting. Let's just pull the Titans logo back up. On the same day that the Titans lost, by the way, this article comes out and friggin', just points a picture right in everybody's face of what's happening, and also what's happening in the stock markets as we get this continual stock melt up as the coronavirus was infecting and killing people. This is the article on the 23rd of 2020 with 25 dead, 5 times 5, the V steganography written in there too. And there's 17 too. The 17 was in this as it relates to Q and the false narrative of God and all these things, because 17 deaths was what they were painting across the news outlets for days and days and days and days. It didn't really change for like 3 or 4 days. When this news story broke, coincidentally, like the day after you guys have seen me last, which was the 19th or the 20th, this article's dated on the 23rd. What's real interesting about the numerology as it's going to factor into the Super Bowl and Punxsutawney Phil and this coronavirus and Boeing crashing and the Space Force coming out is that 666, like I said I was going to come back to, is kind of at the heart of all of it. 666 is the number of the man, is the riddle in the Bible. And as we've talked about, V represents man itself because we've got 5 digits. 5 is really the number of man. Why is 666 mentioned like this in the Bible? Then we're gonna dive into and discuss why that may be. But of course, we've already identified 36 is tied to 666 because of its triangular number. We go back to 36 degrees on the divine ratio pentagram. But what you also find with the prime numbers is that between the 121st and the 122nd prime is where 666 falls. You get 661 and 673. So it's not a prime number, but it falls between those two numbers. And what's interesting about that is that when we're looking for all of these coronavirus stories, the bulk of them, this is on the 23rd now, but the bulk of all the stories being hit when there was the most confusion was between January 21st and January 22nd. If you go back to those days, That's when the bulk of the stories are. And I don't even have those ones up here because, I was sending myself articles. I had a Google Alerts set for it and to send and dump into my inbox. I didn't even go through all of them, but it was just the volume of them that were being sent to me during those days. It's pretty staggering. And so by the time the 23rd hits, we've still got V steganography. The 17 was V steganography all over it, of course. Let's remember that Marshawn Lynch, number 24 for the Seahawks, beast mode was 17 in the combine too. And who was number 24? Kobe Bryant, and he dies, and so that's related somehow. You see how the ritual is this big packed in ball, and we've got to look between it. So the coronavirus ends up being this thing that pops up with 666. It's tied to the number 5 somehow. And we find out that over time, here's Joseph Farrell's blog again, that this thing is a patented virus. We're getting all of these accounts of certain scientists in Canada running with an engineered version of this thing that ended up in Wuhan somehow via a scientist who is Zhang Guo Qi. And this Chinese scientist in particular was born in Tianjin. And Tianjin is the site of the explosion a couple years ago at the chemical plant that was supposedly caused by the Rod of God weapon. And here's the explosion itself. I won't pull up a video, but it was massive. It was caught on video across the entire country. If you haven't seen this thing, this is the crater that it made. Just astounding. And this is the destruction that it caused at this chemical plant facility. Absolutely, utterly mind-blowing. All right? And what gets me about this is that this is the secret space program. The Rod of God weapon is an orbital weapon that's up there that shoots tungsten rods. This thing, here it is, at a kinetic velocity such that it basically outpaces its ability to maintain some semblance of coherence. And by the time it hits the ground, the penetration effect and the explosion of the kinetic energy that it's built up because of its speed, it creates an explosion akin to what you're seeing here in Tianjin, right? Let's just call it Tianjin. Real friggin' interesting stuff, and it all ties into, of course, the space program in some sort of a way, because that was a chemical plant explosion, and all the connections with these scientists between the Wuhan Virus Center and this event back in 2015 are seemingly connected. So the other thing is that this seems to be simulation. What's up with this, right? We're getting that the Gates Foundation, in this article here, simulated the exact coronavirus outbreak scenario last November with Event 201. We know that Bill Gates is on board for the Agenda 21 initiatives, whatever those may or may not be. And in this article, it's interesting because we've got, as at the time of writing, January 25th, 54 people in mainland China had died, which is Super Bowl 54, and the infection was 1,700 people. And so you've got the 17 and 54 number in there again, along with 21. And my, gosh dang it. I hate it when this happens, guys. Hold on just a sec. Let me get these images pulled back up because I am going to be using them throughout the course of this video. Yeah, I'll just get those ones pulled back up. The important ones are, as we're relating, actually, might as well talk about it now here, are the Umbrella virus and, of course, this RLSW company as well, or Umbrella Corporation. Umbrella Corporation is a fictitious company in a video game called Resident Evil, or a series called Resident Evil, where virus outbreak happens and basically turns everybody into zombies. um, and real bad stuff, real caustic stuff. And what's weird is that this simulated event in the original video game headquarters kind of the United States, where Microsoft is, where Nintendo is, in Seattle, the simulation relating to video games, at least with the word simulated, is that it says here during the start of the Lunar New Year celebrations, a mysterious virus is spreading, and the simulation, although at first some countries are able to control it, it continues to spread and being reintroduced, and eventually no country can maintain control. There is no possibility of vaccine being available in the first year, since the whole human population is susceptible during the initial months of the pandemic. Cumulative effect of cases increases exponentially, doubling every week. This is kind of the plot of the original Resident Evil Outbreak story. I mean, this game's been around for forever. It's been around since the 90s. So this logo that I showed, of course, is just the logo of that corporation in the video game. But what you also see here with the logo itself is more V steganography. You have a bunch of letter V's put together to form the umbrella. And you also have the X steganography here too, of course. You can see both steganographic patterns with this logo. So there's something being not told to us, of course, but it is being told to us through steganography if you know where to look and know how to interpret. And I'm not a perfect savant myself, even though that's the name of the channel, the Skullcap Savant. I don't maintain that I'm a practitioner of the occult, anything but. I only maintain that I'm decoding it the best I can. And honestly, I'm not a heretic about it. I've got other stuff to do with life than sit here and do steganography all day, as much as I'd like to. General archaeology is much more interesting to me, actually. But anyway, that's kind of what we're doing here, and it's just some crude archaeology. And so where my thoughts begin and end here, I might reference the other thing that also is related to the video game component, in that, and here, Zach Hubbard's page again, he's referencing these QAnon supporters. Oh, the anti-vaxxers and QAnon supporters are spreading a hoax that Bill Gates created the coronavirus. That's a little bit ridiculous, of course. This is all ritualistic in numbers and such, but I don't think anybody can draw the conclusion that Bill Gates would have engineered anything like this. But it is interesting that there is a video game that Microsoft is bringing out later this year based on the Black Plague. In the Year of the Rat, in China, the Year of the Rat, and the Black Plague was caused by rats. Another virus that spread, right? And so around and around we go with these coincidences. So anyway, where do I want to go from here? Oh, before we move on too much, the 52-25 reverse. I mentioned in some other videos that the elephant walk of the F-35s had happened lockstep with a lot of these key numerology dates with the Space Force. And what do we find? That is the 107th Fighter Squadron performed an elephant walk with the A-10 Thunderbolt Warthog fighter. So we have the Lightning II F-35 crafts, 52 of them doing an elephant walk with B-52s. And now we have the A-10 Thunderbolt too. So we have the Lightning and Thunderbolt relating to the ether, which Nikola Tesla drew us wonderfully accurate ways to think about such things. And we have 107th Fighter Squadron, another 17 relating to the Q phenomenon, relating to the let me just show you on. Boom. God, the A10, 55, 17, 26, right? 26 letters on the alphabet is why 26 would matter. Also, why 26 would matter is the number of bones in the body. You have 206 bones in the body, right? 26 is what you would reduce that to in numerology. Of course, 0 doesn't have representation. But what's interesting about that is 206. It's the area code of Seattle, the dialing area for your phone. So you're starting to see why some of this stuff is tied together the way it is. And it's a cult practice is what we're going to be reductive and say about it for now. We'll come back to this list again. I actually, maybe it's a good time just to show some of this other stuff with the 119, the Star of David, of course, we've referenced with the heart chakra, the eighth sphere being in control of this realm, Ahriman. Crap, these stupid images won't stay up. Of course, we've got history repeating, alphabetic order, ancient secrets, the Catholic Jesuit, MMR vaccine. All these things are 888, or 8888, which is the orbital pattern of the sun and the moon relative to our perspective of it here on Earth, of course. And you've got the 223s interspersed with a lot of these phraseologies as well, which is the number that's shmammered on the bottom of, there's the reverse of the number shmammered on the bottom of the Skull and Bones Society. 223 is a divine number to many religions throughout the world. Of course, you got the King James 119 down here too. All-seeing eye, divine rule, Star of David. So, Warren Moon, it's some of this stuff actually, also just to keep this video a little bit more concise, guys, has been decoded a lot better over here with Derek. This guy's name is Derek, the guy that made the gematria narrative calculator that we use. He's got his own page over here that he's tying together Joe Montana, the eclipse that happened in 1979, which is real interesting. Check this out. Let's see if we can get... Here it is. The eclipse that happened in 1979, the year that Joe Montana was drafted into the NFL. And here we go. Follows a path from Washington to Montana. Moon-tana. Like on Moon Day, Monday, with all of the stuff where he was... there are a lot of Monday significant events that I'm actually not remembering right now from this video in particular. Believe it or not, I can't remember everything. And I'm not really going to play it either. I will link this video so you guys can watch it in its entirety. It's an hour long in and of itself. And so you can see some of the kind of decodes that he's done here. But I only wanted to point out he very astutely had the path in 1979 of the full solar, or the full eclipse, first entering in over Washington, and it was viewable from Seattle, of course. It went over Montana. So there's, again, the Seattle connection with Microsoft, Boeing. The first case of the coronavirus was of course, documented to be in Seattle. This whole video game fiasco with the coronavirus and its connection with the Black Plague and the Year of the Rat in China, and how Microsoft is factoring in with simulated events that give us clues as to what the heck may or may not be going on here. Perhaps the most important video that I can actually have anybody look at in terms of any of this is the video Cliff High did yesterday, relating to how strange it is that the coronavirus reaction in China, even to people that are very high ranking in their society, he'll speak to this in his video, and how weird it is and odd it is to them that the virus itself is being approached by the government the way that it is, with such...
Describe this picture here.
Hold on here. With how they're approaching it with such panic, I guess. And Cliff High actually, more to the point, goes into how history is falsified with this book by Dr. Anatoly Fomenko, which I'm putting up the second iteration, or the second chapter of his book, titled Chronology, because this is the book that Cliff High is mentioning. He's got 5 of these books in this series overall. And Cliff is basically explaining how over time history has been occluded such that we're more than likely missing over 1,050 years from our history since Christ. These are huge implications, of course, because if we're and he goes in to explain how this could have happened with a couple of monks in the Catholic Church that, by fear of being impaled to death, simply made up 1,000 years worth of history and filled in the blanks. He actually goes into the study of this is we can go back in time with some accuracy, 250 years, 95% accuracy range of the events that have happened. Go all the way back to the American Revolution, the naval periods of history, the pirates. But you go much further back than that, and it seems that there's a bunch of stuff that's been copy and pasted and just made up. And the suggestion here is that prior to this, Rome was established somewhere in there, maybe 600 to 900 years prior, rather than 2,000 years or approximately before the time that we're living in now, is when the whole Roman Empire situation was coming apart. He goes into the royals, the elite, the Elohim, who they may or may not be, the Nephilim, who they may or may not be, and what their elongated skulls have to do with hiding the history in plain sight. But the point is that if you can do this, if you can control history like the Catholic Jesuits have, you can really decide dates of significance, numerology and occult dates of significance, lining up to certain celestial alignments, because you can pick and choose when the calendar begins and ends. And this is what I suspect has happened with the Gregorian calendar. And a lot of people wonder, like, why do these numbers line up? What's going on? Could it just be coincidence? And no, I don't think so, because it's outside of it fits inside of statistical correlation boundaries, that this is made up, that this is manufactured, because it doesn't just happen this way naturally. Just like the moon. The moon, is it a coincidence that the moon's 400 times the distance to the sun? Is it a coincidence that, just like in the words, oh my goodness, I don't lost my photos again. Is it a coincidence that just like in the words, Euclid, geometry, where 108 is such a factor in the geometrical values of those words, that it would take 108 moons distance to travel to the moon, and it would take 108 sun distances to travel to the sun, and that the diameter supposedly of the sun is 108 Earths. And can we truly even trust these numbers? Because as Cliff is talking about, based on this history being occluded from us, we are left to have to believe established scientific communities that these numbers are indeed accurate. But as he goes on to describe, and as we've talked about, the Earth is expanding. So if the Earth is always expanding and celestial bodies like that are expanding in nature, how far truly can we go back and measure accurately those distances, those parameters, and trust that the numbers are telling us the true thing? It is truly weird that the moon lines up right now exactly to the point where we can have a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse. But if the Earth were to expand anymore, what would that mechanism look like? Is there a mechanism such in the moon where it gets pushed further out into orbit? These are the questions I'm attempting to answer right now in reading books like this. I don't have any answers for you on that front, but I do at least hopefully poke those holes so people can see that something's not being told to us here. And if it is manufactured, like history seems to be, this is all that would be necessary for key dates and rituals to be controlled literally by the numbers. And for money to go missing in the secret space program, well, we're not going to get into all that, I guess. But switching gears here a little bit, literally, I thought I might also show you, because we're talking about Tesla a lot and Tesla crashing and burning, Fisker is now a company called Karma, and they're also an electronic vehicle manufacturer. As you can see, these guys kind of make one that looks like a Maserati or whatever, but lambda steganography all throughout. So again, Tesla is mainly what we've talked about before. Another electronic vehicle company, the lambda steganography is here. There's something else going on that that I certainly am not drawing any conclusions of. But Gigi Young also talks about Arman in her latest video that she does about the D-Wave computer. And I really, she doesn't understand quantum computing to a technical degree, so she goes off the deep end a little bit with some of her suppositions about what is truly happening with controlling of AI and things like this. But this is another video I'm going to link for sure. The other thing, I wanted to show you guys that I saw that came out on January 22nd, in the same period that the coronavirus was coming out, is this movie Vivarium. Of course, or the trailer for this movie Vivarium. More lambda steganography here. What this movie is about seems pretty suspect. By the way, the length of the trailer is 227. 22 divided by 7 is 3.14, which is pi. Another example of, again, divine ratios and mathematics of a Pythagorean or Greek variety being thrown right in our friggin' face. Of course, that's what we're talking about with these Greek characters. The number 9 factor is huge into this movie. What it seems to be is that this couple is going to buy a home for their family. And in the trailer, you've got all of these houses that are same. They're exactly like cookie cutter versions of the same thing. And this creepy sales guy is trying to get them to buy unit number 9. And, you know, unit number 9 is related to, if you care to go back to Derek's videos, let me see if I can get his, yeah. If you go to the moon, this moon chart, the magic square of the moon, this is an interesting thing as it relates to the Super Bowl itself, because you get this 9x9 square, and the number 9 factors really heavily into this magic square of the moon, which also factors into with New Jerusalem, right? But it's interesting because between Joe Montana's birthday and the Super Bowl, he's exactly 3,321 weeks old, exactly, as of today. No extra days added in there, and the sum of the magic square of the moon is 3,000.
Every planet has what's called
and why is that interesting is because if you go look at San Francisco 49ers playoff record all time. Let's just type that in. Oh, here it is. Their playoff record. You guys see that? 33-21. So we're going back to this. 33-21. What is going to happen with the Super Bowl today? I don't know. Of course, there's this 369 thing as it relates to the moon and Andy Reid, and like I think I've correctly identified and pointed out, this is a ritual for the space program. It's a ritual for the gold standard coming apart, or maybe being reinstituted in some sort of ways, which is what the 49ers represent. I just don't care enough about the results to go and do all that decode. I care way more about the symbology behind all this, guys, than I do about, guessing things correctly, because that just leads to gambling and all sorts of bad stuff. So take all that stuff for what you will. I'm going to link all this stuff I've seen in the description. And I'll pass another couple 54 curiosities your way relating to the Titans, relating to of course the Niners and the rituals that come with it. E40, who's a rapper, there's another Seattle reference too. He released a single. He's on the San Francisco 49ers anthem called "The Niners Gang," and so this video got released on December 18th, 2019. And Niner Gang is interesting because he's got Gary Payton starred in the video, which is another Seattle sports star. You got the 24 stuff with Ken Griffey Jr. and the Return of the Prodigal Son there, and the 24 Beast Mode. And Gary Payton was number 20 when he played for the Supersonics. But the Supersonics relate to, again, aerospace technology. That was what the whole thing behind the Supersonics name was. And going back to the gematria, of course, of the 20s, that we were finding in the last video. There was many more gematria values that we'd found relating to 20 in the last video, but it factors in to this ritual a little bit, because what is E but the 5th letter of the alphabet? So if you were gonna, and 0 of course doesn't have numerology, so you literally have 5-4 here, which is Super Bowl 54. Another indication that the Niners, if you were looking back on the 18th and could decode this, could have said, wow, well, it looks like the 49ers are probably going to be in the Super Bowl. He's wearing a number 40 jersey. So there's another 54 for you, and it actually happens on the same day that this legendary T.C. Williams, Coach Herman Boone, who was the coach that was depicted in the Remembering the Titans movie with Denzel Washington. Remember the Titans? He died on that same day, December 18th. So it's all part of the same ritual stuff. And another interesting thing is that Shakira, February 2nd, 1977, she's 43 years old as of today. And she is the one that is going to be performing in the Super Bowl halftime show. I will leave it at there, guys. Hopefully that's not too many loose ends for you. I'm hopefully just adding an aggregate piece of a nexus point, if you will, so you can come to this stuff and look at it for yourself. Just see the occult patterns, because it's all about the V-steganography. Again, I'm only hoping to point toward the V-steganography stuff, because that's really at the heart of all of this, is the X and the V-steganography stuff. And boy, if you want the X stuff, go to the Dark Journalist channel. If you want the V stuff, stay with me. But it's going to be an interesting year. It already is. And we'll see how it all plays out. Love y'all. I hope this gives you something more grounding in a day of just bothersome sin that is the Super Bowl. And I say that jestfully, of course. I mean, I used to be into football as much as the last guy. I collected the football cards and all that crap when I was a kid. I was into it all the way up until 7 years ago or so. All the way up until the Seahawks won their Super Bowl, I think. Super Bowl 43, in fact. I wonder if there's a reference there. Anyway, thanks, guys. That's all for now. Look out for more videos here in the future as I'm able to fit them in. But we'll talk soon. Thanks a lot.